Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Everyone knows that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, in the later years of his life, there were so many people who wanted to see him that there just wasn't enough hours in the day to meet everyone. So he instituted something called dollars. What's dollars? Every Sunday morning when he finished davening Shacharis, which was about 10:30, 10:45, he would come out of his office and stand at a podium and his assistants would put dollars on the stender, and literally thousands of people. If you went outside 770, you saw a line that went outside the synagogue to the corner and around the block. And all day, from all over, not only the tri-state area, but people who were visiting, people came in from Israel, would wait online for hours to get $1 and a blessing from the Rebbe. The reason for the $1, by the way, is the Rebbe had a beautiful idea. He said, when two Jews meet, something positive has to happen for a third Jew. So if you're going to come to me for a blessing, I'm also going to give you $1 to give to charity to a third person who needs tzedakah. And the Rebbe did this for many years, and he would literally stand from 10:30, 11 till mincha, like 6 o'clock, and see thousands of people, and he would give everyone blessings. And if you had a request, whatever you need, you got a few seconds, maybe a minute to talk to the Rebbe. This week's parsha, we have the first scenario along these lines. Moshe Rabbeinu is in the desert, and everyone wants to meet Moshe Rabbeinu. Everyone wants to talk to him. Everyone has questions for him. So the Jews are lining up, literally, min haboker ad ha'arab, from morning to evening, waiting in line all day to ask Moshe a question. His father-in-law Yisro comes to the desert and he sees Jews are waiting in line all day to talk to Moshe, and he says to his son-in-law, Lo tov, it's not good what you're doing. Lo tov, why? Because two reasons. First of all, navol tibol, you're going to get burnt out. You can't do this day in, day out, stand on and talk to people from morning to night. As a leader, you're going to have burnout. And we know there's an idea of leaders having burnout. But he said it's also not fair to the people. They have to wait online all day to talk to you. So Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law advises him to institute a hierarchy, a system of judges. They were the first heads of tens. Every 10 Jews had a judge. If he couldn't answer the question, it went to a higher court, so to speak, a heads of 50. If the head of 50 couldn't answer, it went to heads of 100, then to heads of 1,000, and then the most difficult questions arrived at Moshe Rabbeinu to desk to answer. Like this, there was a weeding out, a filtering to only bring the most complex questions to Moshe Rabbeinu. But the question is, Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest leader, the greatest prophet. Did he really need his father-in-law to give him this advice? He couldn't think of this on his own. I mean, it's a great idea, but Moshe Rabbeinu didn't realize this on his own. He needed his father-in-law to come and tell him this. And there are many answers. One answer is that sometimes when you're in a situation, you don't see things. You need an outsider, like a consultant comes into a company and he tells you what you're doing wrong. Why? Because he comes with fresh eyes. But there's another beautiful, deeper idea. And the idea is that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted the process to start with him addressing everyone's questions personally. Why? Because even though later it would be switched, that only the difficult questions would come to Moshe Rabbeinu, he wanted every Jew to know that the truth is, you deserve my undivided attention. Every Jew deserves to have Moshe Rabbeinu answer his questions directly. Everyone deserves to have a personal audience with the tzaddik. Because of limitations of time, I can't do it. But I want to start the process that way. So even if you don't get to talk to Moshe Rabbeinu, you should know your question and your whatever you need to address is worthy enough and important enough that the tzaddik of the generation should take the time to answer you personally. Don't think you're not seeing Moshe because you're not important. You are important. There just physically isn't enough time to do that. 3 quick stories about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. One was he would always stand as people would wait online for hours. Imagine, the Rebbe was in his 80s, then in his 90s. He stood 6 hours straight. This is all documented. People saw this. He never took a drink of water, never took a break to do anything. He stood straight 6-7 hours. Someone said, why don't you sit at a table and people could come up? You know what the Rebbe said? If thousands of people are standing, how can I sit? And then someone asked him, don't you get tired? Talking to thousands of people in one day, one after another. The Rebbe said, when you count diamonds, you never get tired. Every Jew is a diamond to him. And finally, a third story. An elderly woman came by, and she started telling the Rebbe her problems. The Rebbe gave her blessings. But she started repeating her problems again. So the Rebbe gave her more blessings. And then she repeated herself the third time. She was going in a cycle. She couldn't stop talking about her problems. So the Rebbe's assistant looked at her like, lady, you need to move, and sort of gave her like a little nudge to go, because there are thousands of people waiting. You can't hold up the line. And the Rebbe looked at the Rebbe's assistant, I won't say his name, very angrily, or like disappointed that he spoke to this woman this way. Later, when they went back into the room for mincha time, to get ready for mincha, the Gabbai apologized to the Rebbe, and he said, I was just trying to move her along because she had repeated herself 3 times, and there were a lot of people waiting. The Rebbe said in Yiddish to this rabbi who was one of his assistants, he says, when a person comes to me and he tells me about his problems, sie nimmt herab a Stein vom Herzen. She takes a stone off her heart. And every time she repeats it, her problem to me, sie nimmt herab noch a Stein vom Herzen. She takes another stone off her heart. Was art is there? Why do you care about Yidden if a woman wants to take off a stone from her heart? That was the love and the compassion, like Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Rebbe had for every single Jew. All of us have to be like the Rebbe. Rebbe is Rosh B'nai Yisrael, the head of the Jewish people. The head feels the pain of every part of the body, even down to your toenail. We have to feel the plight of every single Jew.